Executive Director of ICM Canada. We'd just like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video report of our ministry in East Africa. We're involved in pastoral training, and we're just really excited about the growth in the ministry over the last few years. And we'd like to just share that with you. So you'll see some scenes of the pastoral training and what we're involved with in East Africa. But not only will you be informed, we also hope that you'll be encouraged as you're able to see what God is doing on the field right now in the great harvest, and perhaps how you can be involved to join with us in this exciting adventure in pastoral leadership training. So sit back now and enjoy this video.
What images does Africa produce in your mind? For many, it remains a dark and mysterious continent full of jungles teeming with exotic birds and wild animals. While this is still common in parts of Africa, Africa today is more than just jungles, snakes, and natives. In many parts of the continent, the more typical picture is that of growing urban sprawl with all the societal problems which accompany developing nations. As in all societies, however, Christ has the answer for every problem facing both the individual heart and the culture as a whole. The church in Africa today faces the challenge of being effective in a society undergoing incredible change. We must answer the question, how can we be the salt and light in the midst of these immense needs? The African continent has over 50 countries, with a total population upwards of 3/4 billion people. We minister in the region of East Africa, bordered by the Indian Ocean in the east and Zaire to the west. These are lands of immense beauty and diversity, though most of the news from Africa tends to be of a negative nature. Our current focus is in the countries of Kenya and Uganda. There's a great variety in these lands, in the waters of the Indian Ocean on the east coast of Kenya, and the forested mountain ranges in the west. The center of the country is sliced in two by the great Rift Valley, where distinct volcanoes rise from valley people. Yet the beauty of these countries does not end with the land. The people are as diverse and special as the land they inhabit. Would you be surprised to find out that there are more Christians in Africa today than all of North America and Europe combined? In much of Africa, the spiritual birth rate is even outpacing the physical birth rate. This leads to the obvious question, when it comes to church growth, why then do they need our help? They seem to be doing better than we are. While it is true that the church is growing in numbers at a phenomenal pace, there's a very real problem which needs to be addressed. The problem is that the training of capable leaders is not kept up with the rate of conversions. Very often it's a case of the immature leading the immature. This has allowed Islam and various cults an opportunity to make inroads in the church. The sobering statistic is that 90% of the leaders in the fastest growing churches in Africa today, the indigenous churches, have no theological training. These are not just leaders seeking to upgrade their educational level. These are men and women who are in positions of responsibility, yet who have very little biblical knowledge. Imagine, if you will, trying to lead a congregation, or perhaps several, with less Bible knowledge than the average North American churchgoer has. If this situation continues, new believers will not mature, and the church will not be effective. This is why we're assisting the African church to provide training for its leaders. ICM has pioneered a new approach in order to meet this need. But as a mission organization from the West, we exist only to come alongside the African church and, with our expertise and training, help them equip their own leaders. Over the last 10 years, ICM has developed various on-the-job training programs in order to meet the needs of the current church leaders in Africa. We are facilitators. It is our goal to help nationals train nationals by providing them with the tools in order to train their own people. This is important, for the traditional methods of training are presently not able to keep pace with the great need of equipping leaders.
I'd like to introduce you to one of ICM's staff members working with us in Kenya. Many of our innovative programs are administered by James Kamau. During one of my recent trips to Kenya, he shared his perspective on the need in his country and how ICM's training is meeting this need. I spoke with him at our training center, Kitale, Kenya, which is located on the edge of beautiful Mount Elgon. This center is the hub of the many extension training centers called our CBBSs, or church-based Bible schools. These are owned by each local church, and combined they are now ministering to some 1,000 church leaders.
Why is it important to put materials and tools into these men's hands as they go out to their churches and their villages?
I think one of the major problems in our country is that most of the church leaders have very little education or training, and some of them even very little formal education. So the books help them develop ministry skills. Just by getting the books there, you're getting them to read something which they never read on their own, and they're getting trained for the ministry.
For some of the reports that you've heard back of men that have actually done this and helped provide some of this training in their churches.
One particular case I think of is the Christ Deliverance with a pastor, Dennis Okumu. He picked a book on church growth at a very basic level, that's grade 4 to grade 6 level. And he learned some of the ways in which the church grows, and he applied those directly. And his church just doubled within about a year. He learned that church grows by, biological children are born. He also learned that there are transfer cases. He also learned that there are people who come to an area, and if they are not followed up, they get lost. And so he focused on the children and on the people that were moving in the area, and his church just grew. And we have similar cases of other people that have benefited.
Well, that's really what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what it is. When our lives are changed and others see it, I'm sure they'll be drawn to the Lord.
Program actually work. How do we actually get the training to them? And
2 times a year, we invite pastors and church leaders. We pass the word around by word of mouth or by contacting town, and we invite them here for what we call theater training. The theater training lasts about 3 full days. They arrive on a Monday evening and leave on a Friday morning. In those 3 days, they learn how to lead groups, to lead discussions using the different materials, and how to administer these what we call CBBS. So when they leave, they carry books, 1 book per person, and these books are designed so that they have 10 lessons. So they go home, and for 10 weeks, they meet once a week to discuss the materials, and the people are supposed to read the materials while at home, so they come and just discuss. The discussion is kind of integral to apply what they read in the material.
It is so rewarding to see the life change in these pastors. As their lives are changed and they grow in their faith, it spills over and positively affects their whole church. And since they are directly involved in community outreach, church planting, and discipling new converts, this training then directly impacts their entire community. Through ICM's innovative approach, we are able to provide this practical in-service training at considerable savings over more traditional formal programs. This means that the training is more accessible to those currently in ministry. It also means that every dollar given goes directly to training those who will impact their culture for Christ, since we only target recognized leaders. Our programs provide graduate training without requiring the students to travel abroad or attend more expensive residential schools. I wish I could take you with me so that you could see firsthand the benefit that this training is having. One particular pastor whose life and ministry has been blessed through this training is Evan Chapala. He belongs to an indigenous church. This is a term used to describe a church planted by local believers and supported by them. 50% of all Christians in Africa today belong to such an indigenous church. Evans is enrolled in our pastoral BA program and was in my class, Non-Pauline Epistles, which I taught on a recent trip. He shared a few thoughts with me one day after class.
My church is in Eldoret town, accounting about 350,000 people. It was founded back in 1990. We only became about 10 of us. By this time, we stand at 300 people in the year 95. We began very few. We didn't know much, but through God's grace, God has been able to lift us to where we are for now.
And so you have come to the training here at ICM, and what training meant for you and your ministry? Why do you see it as important?
This training has been quite focusing to me. Before I came to this training, I had not had any prior training before in the ministry. And before then, I would say my congregation suffered much because I had a call, but I didn't know how to divide the word of truth properly. But since I came to the seminary, I've been able to learn much about the word, how to divide it, and to do proper delivery. And I would say my congregation has been blessed because of the transformation that has come my way. Even myself personally, I feel more confident to do the work of the ministry than I ever felt before.
And how often do you come to classes? How does it work out, and how does that help you in your family and your ministry?
We stand a better chance to benefit from the program because we come 3 times in a year. Each time is only 5 weeks, which is separated by 12 weeks. So we have 5 weeks of class, 12 weeks back in the ministry, 5 weeks in class, 12 weeks in the ministry across the year. And the benefit we've had with this is that it does not detach us from the ministry.
Well, what do some other people have to do? Are they gone for even longer from the ministry and from the families, aren't they? Those that have to go abroad?
Very different approach to ministry. Most of the schools, they have to have somebody run for 4 years, fully until the program is over. Then they can call back to their families, call back to their ministries, and in the process you may find that much can happen between the 4 years. You may even lose the ministry, even the family could suffer several damages. So this is a better program to us.
Evans typifies the needs of the indigenous pastor, and his experience underscores the need for this unique training approach. As the fastest growing churches, these indigenous churches are key to a sustained Christian witness in Africa by local Africans. However, since leaders from these indigenous churches often lack the opportunity for training, this is our primary target group. For practical reasons, they cannot take extended time away from their families or their churches and travel great distances to receive training. This is why we bring the training to them. We believe that biblical training must be available for all, not just those who are financially able. It must be inexpensive and applicable to their lives and ministries. Upon completion of the program, their studies are also internationally recognized. While the pastors are required to cover some of the cost, we need additional assistance in order to help cover the real cost of the training. With your help, we can provide Evans and other pastors like him with an opportunity they would otherwise not have. Travel with us now over the western border of Kenya into Uganda. Uganda is surely one of the most beautiful places on earth. One can still travel to areas in this country which produce images of what Africa must have been like for the 19th century explorers. While it is perhaps best known as the home of the source of the Nile, there is much more to this country than romantic missionary scenes and beautiful photo opportunities. In contrast to the natural beauty, the Ugandan people have endured much suffering through political turmoil, disease, and particularly AIDS, which has decimated whole areas. The need for biblical training in this country is even more acute than in Kenya. While we have assisted many groups in Uganda provide training for their leadership, there is so much more that needs to be done. It's very moving to witness the Ugandans' intense hunger for God's Word. This is particularly evident in Saronko, an area which was visited by Phil during a recent trip. It's located next to the foothills of Mount Elgon on the Ugandan side of an area which is known for its coffee industry.
It was 1991 when I first traveled to this area to facilitate biblical training for its pastors and leaders. Since then, they have continued with this extension training. On my last trip, James and I revisited this area, and we were encouraged to discover that the churches had doubled in number and their congregations were growing in the faith. In the face of severe trials and hardships, they had continued to plant the seed of the gospel, which is now bearing much fruit. While they are in need of sound biblical training, they also possess spiritual strengths which have been forged in the fires of persecution. This ability of the Ugandan believers to endure persecution and come through it victorious stands as a testimony to us all. I can't help but be reminded of a story that a Ugandan student told me as we shared a meal together in a home along the beautiful Nile River. He recounted how during Idi Amin's reign of terror, the elders in his church were rounded up and detained. During this period of Amin brutality, Christians often disappeared, and their families never heard from them again. While these elders were in prison, their wives were also required to report to the police chief daily. Every day, these 12 women courageously walked the path to the city jail, and every day the officials tried to force them to renounce the Lord. When they would not deny Him, they were severely punished. This continued every day for 2 weeks. In spite of not knowing if they would ever see their husbands or families again, they continued to refuse to deny their Lord. Their love and devotion to Him remained strong. Their faith had been tried in the severest of trials, and when they eventually returned to their churches, they were able to strengthen the fellow believers as the apostles of old did so long ago. We are witnessing in Uganda today the fruit of this faith which has come through the refiner's fire. The brother who shared this with me is now a pastor in the same northern region of Uganda where this occurred. Instead of wiping out the church, this persecution was the soil in which the seed of the gospel germinated and is now growing. Before Amin's persecution, in his denomination alone, where there were only 25 churches, there are now over 10,000. He was a radiant witness to the growth of the church in that area.
Accounts such as this can be found throughout Africa. The opportune time to train these leaders is now. Yet due to the realities in Africa today, it's not just business as usual. There's a paradigm shift which is occurring. On many fields, the role of the missionary needs to change. Western organizations are called to be facilitators, equipping nationals so that they may better fulfill the Great Commission. This is why ICM has structured its training programs as it has. God is adding to the church daily. We must act decisively in order not to miss this opportunity, the opportunity we have of training reliable leaders who will then be better equipped to train others. As Paul admonishes Timothy, we need to train reliable men who will then be qualified to teach others. As a mission, this is why we exist. By supporting ICM, you're helping us equip a generation of African leaders. The time for harvest does not last forever. We must seize the day while it's still ours.
Thank you for taking the time and sharing this video with us and being informed about what we're doing in East Africa. As you can see from the pictures and the images, God is doing incredible work in East Africa, and as we've been involved in pastoral training, we've seen just incredible growth in these men's lives as they've been built up in the faith and then been able to be better equipped to share in their community. From the Ugandan story that
this ministry has grown from a handful of church leaders in East Africa to upwards of 1,000 leaders representing over 70 denominations. In less than a decade, ICM has become known as an innovator in leadership training and presently is one of the largest extension training programs in all of Africa. ICM's unique methods of training, which are now internationally recognized, have met a need and struck a responsive chord in the African church. There is much work which still needs to be done, and the door for service is open wide. ICM Canada plays a vital role in the overall training ministries. Canadian supporters underwrite the monthly costs of the training center, help in the financial support of national staff, and provide pastoral scholarships for African pastors. As Executive Director, Phil's role is to share the vision with Canadian churches, being an advocate for the African pastor and the situation in Africa. His responsibilities also include working on promotional material, writing curriculum which is used in the BA program, and teaching various courses at the center. We have opportunity to expand this training into other African countries, but we need your help. Would you like to have a vital part in this training? You can become an ICM partner by committing to pray for this ministry regularly. becoming a monthly faith partner, providing a love gift for this ministry, supporting the building fund for ICM's training center, providing a pastoral scholarship. You can also help us by sharing this video with a friend and recommending them to this ministry. To contact our offices in Canada, write International Christian Ministries, 19978 72nd Avenue, Langley, British Columbia, B2Y1R7. Please make your checks payable to ICM. Canadian supporters can also take advantage of our monthly pre-authorized payment plan by sending a voided check with the monthly amount you would like debited from your account. As well as being convenient, this helps us budget and manage our funds more efficiently. American supporters can contact us directly, but donations should be sent to International Christian Ministries, P.O. Box 4668, Modesto, California, 95352-4668. Again, please make checks payable to ICM and designate them to ICM Canada. We have a ministry newsletter which we would be happy to send you to keep you informed of this ministry. Thank you for helping us equip the African